Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CXO show. My name is Swapnil Kamath. I am the CEO of upGrad for Business, which is the B2B arm of upGrad, Asia's largest higher education company. Today, I have with me Suchita Dantre. How are you, Suchita?
Very well, Swapnil. How are you doing?
Very well. We before this conversation, we had a little bit of a power cut, a little bit of this. So I'm so glad we've sorted all those things out, and now we're ready to go because I've been looking forward to this conversation with you. And like I just mentioned, we were supposed to do this at our studio, but I didn't want to delay this further. So here we go. May as well do it on virtually as the world has been operating for now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Like I mentioned on the first episode, the objective of this show, the CXO show, is to throw light on professionals across India that have succeeded in different domains. Because as a consumer of a lot of business podcasts, I keep saying I don't find podcasts or any of these shows throwing enough of a light on India's amazing professionals that have taken India to possibly becoming the third largest economy over the next few years, right? So that's the objective of the show. And what I want for the listeners is for each one of you all to be able to pick up at least a couple of points, 2 or 3 things that you can learn from these successful professionals that you can use in your own career and your own life, right? So that's the objective that we have for this 45-minute to an hour chat that we possibly have, right? Before I get started with the questions, I'd like to introduce Suchita because she has a resume that is extremely strong, right? So Suchita Dantre is a senior director and a country head of human resources at Midland Credit Management. In her current role at Midland, Suchita works closely with the senior leadership team in India to secure and build the best talent pool for the organization. She also plays an instrumental role in establishing the employer brand at Midland Credit and is continuing the organizational journey in creating and establishing the best-in-class people practices. Suchita is passionate about all things people and culture and is someone who is very hands-on when it comes to all employee initiatives. She's an alumni of XLRI Jamshedpur and has close to 20 years of experience working with organizations like American Express, TCS, eServe, and HT Media, where she worked for 15 years before joining Midland Credit as their India HR head. In these years, she has donned many different hats. She has worked as a strategic change agent and business advisor. She has overseen market analysis and HRIS implementation, deployed several culture transformation models, strengthened HR processes and policies, and helped scale an international radio business, the radio channel, of course, that I'd listened to the most. When away from work, she prefers to unwind in the company of her 2 daughters and husband, and is also an avid social media enthusiast with a popular podcast series called Adventures of an Underdog, which can be found on HT Smartcast, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Thank you very much, Suchita, for joining us in this particular conversation. I'm really glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so humbling to listen to all this about yourself.
Well, we're not used to listening to good stuff about ourselves, no?
We're not. Yeah.
Cool. Suchita, run me through. I know I have briefly, but just for a listener, I want them to get a sense of, where you started in terms of your education and what led you to being HR head, country HR head of a large organization. Walk people through your career journey, and let's take it from there.
Sure. Swapnil, I take a lot of pride in saying that I come from a small town. I also take a lot of pride in saying, by the way, I haven't been the top student in terms of my academics. Okay, yeah. And it's important to say it because I feel people feel that only people who score very high are the ones who could be successful.
Me too.
Okay, great. Yeah. I've been an enthusiastic sports person till I was doing actually +2. So was not really so focused on my at the school time as far as my education is concerned. Till my graduation, I was at Indore. So that's why I say I take a lot of pride in saying this, that I started my journey from there. I come from a middle-class, service-class family, and I always had this hunger to prove myself. And after getting into college is when I got serious about my studies. But I do feel, and I would want to say it, that my sports days during my school, they are the ones, though, that the strength, the personality that I am, it's all because of those days. And I bring it to work, and then my attitude at work, my challenges today, I deal with the personality that got created because of me being in sports. I really believe in it.
Got it.
So anyways, I started there from Indore, came to Delhi, did my master's here, and then, of course, got into job. I had to struggle initially to get onto a job while I topped in my batch as far as my MBA is concerned. However, I wasn't the first ones to have gotten a job. It was a lull time from the market standpoint then. But when I got into it, there was no looking back. I got into a great brand like American Express, and then there was no looking back. Citi happened, HT happened, and now Midland Credit Management. So that's broadly been the journey, really. I, of course, during the journey, kept on learning, and I still learn, right? So XLRI happened. I on purpose chose to get onto HR was my domain, and I wanted to do something from XLRI, so picked up course there. Currently, as we talk, I am learning coaching. That comes very close to my heart because I feel it is meant for people like me who are very people driven. And I've been the go-to person for people, so why not really do it in a structured way? So yeah, that's what my journey has been so far.
Amazing. Very, very nice to hear that, because, you know, the one thing that I pick from there is the whole enthusiasm towards learning and being a true lifelong learner, right? If I have to tell you one thing which is ingrained in our DNA at upGrad is this spirit of lifelong learning, whether it's through a formal course that you take, whether it's through, you know, feedback that you could get from your peers or your leaders, or whether it's just reflection done in a proper way, right? I think that spirit of lifelong learning and sleeping smarter than you woke up every day is something that I think a lot of people at upGrad really believe in. My next question to you, Suchita, is: were you always clear on HR as a domain? Or did you start off somewhere else and then discovered your passion and love towards HR? Talk to me about that a little bit.
I had not even remotely thought about HR, you know, when I was growing up. In fact, inspired by my father, I wanted to be an engineer and only an engineer. I got so much into sports that I missed the cutoff for maths, and I didn't get mathematics, and actually never got onto that. But then it doesn't end there. I mean, and that's how, you know, I got into the management side. Even there, in fact, my plan was to be into sales. However, my husband, who was then my boyfriend, he brainstormed me into getting into HR. But I think this flair that I have of connecting with people or enjoying, you know, conversations or solving for people is broadly where I find a lot of connect of it with my current domain. Having said that, I've always had this opportunity from leaders that I've worked with in finance saying, you have a great flair for numbers, why don't you join finance team? Or that, you know, you could do very well with your negotiation and influencing, come to the sales domain, you know, or you have ideas, get into the marketing side. So HR was not at the top of my mind. It happened and I started enjoying it. But I've always been open to taking on projects and assignments which are not strictly HR. I've done it in my last role as well, certain sales projects, business projects. I would continue to do that as and when given an opportunity. But yeah, that's how it has been.
That's so great to hear, because, you know, two thoughts there to start with, right? In my experience of dealing with HR heads and even learning and development heads for that matter, I think that all-round exposure to different things which are connected to business, whether it's sales, marketing, or finance, becomes so important, because then it gives the HR head or the learning and development head a really holistic view of the business. And then you really have your feet on the ground in some way, right? And because sometimes I find such a huge disconnect between the HR heads and their organization if they don't have this real cross-functional experience, even if it could be in the form of projects that you spoke about, right? Or just taking some initiatives there. So I think that's a great tip that you shared in some way with anybody that wants to get into HR, right? So even if you bounced around a little bit, right? If you've been in a sales role earlier and different roles, that really helps, even if you decide to take HR eventually as an area of specialization. And I've seen that across all the amazing HR heads that I've met through the years. I think there's another very interesting thing that you throw light on, right? Because every time I meet somebody graduating out of college, Suchita, that need for having a lot of clarity, right, is something which makes a lot of young people feel very lost, right? Because they feel, hey, I need to know exactly what I'm going to do right after graduating. And I keep telling people, because I've seen the whole spectrum, Suchita. I've seen people that have been extremely clear, that I had a cousin of mine that was extremely clear from the very beginning, from school, that she wanted to become a doctor. And she did become a doctor, and she really enjoys being a doctor. But on the other side, I've had an example of her husband that throughout his career wanted to be a lawyer, became a lawyer, and within 6 months of actually practicing law, hey, figured out this is not for me, right? There is something else for me, right? And now he's doing well in his own light, right? So I think that that's some great kind of insight into how people can look at their careers, right? Suchita, so my next kind of question to you is, you've been in the HR domain for really long, right? Tell me, what are you seeing any big changes in your people, or just when you socialize with other HR heads? Do you see a big difference in how people are looking at their jobs, work, and career pre-COVID and post-COVID? Is there a difference that you're seeing?
Yes, for sure.
And what would that be? What would be the 2 or 3 things?
Yeah. I think there is a lot of focus that people nowadays have, especially post-COVID, on their life, and value for life has gone much up than how it used to be. So there's one thing which is that generations changing, and therefore how generations operate. That is one thing. COVID, no COVID, right? But I'm saying that post-pandemic, generations like mine and yours also, right? We're not obviously fresh into this industry, right? But I'm saying even us, we've also started sort of being very mindful of what is something that we are enjoying, how much quality life do we want and time do we want with our family, what is it that our job, how is it that we are balancing, what's in it for me, what am I taking away, how is it impacting me, my stress levels, therefore my personal life. So I think those are stuff that obviously, not only the Gen Zs are talking about, it's people like us also. And if I dare put you and me in baby boomers, we also started thinking on those lines. So people are far more focused and sensitive about what they pick up, what they want to do, and how does it impact them.
Got it. So I think I'm hearing this, Suchita, that's a great insight, because I'm hearing this from multiple of my friends who are HR heads and colleagues that are in that particular domain. So you see a bigger focus on, if I had to just put it broadly, the most commonly used term is work-life balance, right? You're seeing a bigger focus amongst people there. You also spoke about generations, right? And again, you have a long view on the HR domain. So what are the changes that you're seeing there, right? If you had to split a little between people that are just entering the workforce or have been in the workforce for probably 5 to 8 years, as against people that have probably been there for 10 to 20 years, what's the kind of difference that you're seeing there besides the work-life balance that you spoke about?
So, we just talked about focus, right?
Yeah.
We just talked about coming out of college and really being clear about what people want to do. Yeah. I think with the younger generations and millennials and Gen Zs, and I see even in my kids, they're yet to, of course, enter that stage, but they are really trying to find out answers. And mostly they end up entering corporates with very clear sort of a expectation of what they want from their lives. Vis-a-vis possibly generations which were previous, obviously, older generations who, like I said, in my case, I mean, I wanted to prove my identity. I wanted to, make my parents proud. I wanted to come out of a small town and make my name, right? Yeah. And then, of course, I want to have a lifestyle. So I'm thinking of those lines where kids of younger generation have sufficiently well-balanced life in terms of the resources that parents have provided for.
Got it.
However, they are also very clear of what they want. And therefore, they are far more demanding, maybe, if I may say, of what works, what doesn't work. And they wouldn't think much if they have to sort of put in their papers because things are not working out, if they're mentally not feeling safe and secured at a place, which is very important for them, versus possibly older generation wherein, mental health was not so much on the top of the mind, which has now become gradually. So those are some of the things that I feel have changed a lot. Yeah.
Got it. So if I had to summarize what you're saying, I think you're saying that I'm happy to hear this in some way. I think what you're trying to say is that the younger generation coming into the workforce, or at an early part of their career, are a lot more clear about what they want. In one way, I think what you also alluded to is that there's a bigger sense of confidence, right? I think given where possibly India is right now as a country, given a slight comfort at the home front that they may have had entering the workspace, and therefore feel in a position where they can expect a lot more from their careers, from their workplace as such, right? I think that is,
and employers as well.
And employees as well. So tell me, what from I'd like you to throw light on some of the things you've probably done, not just in your current company, but across, your previous stints as well, as an HR head that is led. What are the changes that you have made to accommodate this new change that you're seeing across the workforce?
So one thing that I learned, especially in my last stint, you have to be talking to them in the language which is something that they relate to. When you read out, my profile, you talked about me being on social media. To be honest, I was never on Instagram and all of it.
Okay.
In my previous job, when I was actually managing a radio and entertainment business, we were transforming our organization from being a radio organization to a digital entertainment organization. It was a need for me to talk the Insta language.
Got
right? And that helped me to be able to connect with my people and folks. With that similar learning, today at Midland Credit Management also, we hire a lot of youngsters, right? When I meet them, I realize as part of our typical inductions and onboardings, you could do sessions and you could do slides. But when I talk to them without slides and I relate to them at their level, talk their lingo, is when they connect with me. Right. So I think that is very, very important. First thing is that it is very important to be able to make yourself relevant with them, come to their level and talk to them in their language. And then, of course, one can get into serious business and talk about stuff. But I'm saying first and foremost is my learning that you come to their level and make friends with them to be able to talk to them. The second thing is, I think, today's these generations, they wouldn't shy away from giving you. You cannot operate in a typical patriarchal format or a hierarchical format that you've been used to doing possibly. Times have changed. Youngsters today have the confidence and have the logic to give a contrary view and stand by it. And I've agreed to you. And you have to have that kind of humility to accept it, So a lot of such things have changed actually. And I these are some of the learnings that I apply in my day-to-day working with folks.
So what I'm taking from you, which I think is a great tip for anyone in the HR department, not just the HR head like you, is the importance of connecting with people first, right? And I think that connection can be formed through, like you said, right, making yourself social media savvy if you weren't, and also, I guess, in a way, talking the language of your people, right? Not sitting on your high horse in some way as an HR professional or an HR head, right? Is that a good summary, Suchita?
Yeah. Social media is an example that I took, but in technology that is relevant. I'm saying the way hiring has changed, the way connecting with people has changed. Of course, you have to talk the language. Social media is an example. Your hiring patterns have changed. Good old days of hiring have changed really, right? People are all doing it all online and digitally. So that has changed. So you have to be relevant for the day for you to be able to relate to your employees of today.
To your audience. When you're Suchita, when you're looking at HR executives, let's take this situation where you need to hire somebody who's on your team, right? And I'm talking about an HR professional across. It could be somebody in compensation and benefits, it could be somebody in OD, or it could be somebody in recruitment. I'm just talking about across the board. If you had to hire a HR professional, what are the 2 or 3 things that you think you would really look for in an HR professional in today's day and age, right? In 2023.
So very honestly, Swapnil, really, gone are the days when you look at people who come with that degree only. Okay. In fact, in our parlance, a lot of our hiring is all internal. We home grow talent. All our talent is through internal job posting, right? Skills you can teach, academics also, or theory also. There are enough and more courses available. One thing that I really want in my people is, one is agility. You know, fail fast and just get up and start again. Agility to learn and change things is something, that attitude really is something which is very important for me. You know, and also this ability to have the courage to call a spade, really, and put value forth. You bring a perspective which I may not have. Put that on table. You know, have that courage to say it. These are some of the things. And of course, last, being the HR lead, I do look for people who are easy to connect with people. You know, that I really feel that HR function has to be a function wherein people do not think much to go to, or, you know, this is the HR. Many a time, the HR becomes a function people don't want to go to. Oh, the matter has gone to HR now. I would rather always want to create a function of people wherein, you know, the rest of the organization feels very open, and the HR should be someone they can just go and walk up to, discuss their problems with. For that, you have to have that flair to connect with people. So these are some of the things I would really look forward to in people.
Got it. But, you know, it's so interesting because when I asked this question, I kept it open-ended on purpose, right? Because I wanted you to really think across the board what you thought was important. And all the three things that you spoke about are, of course, a mix of a behavior and a skill, right? That you're talking about. But largely, if you think of it, it's about your, like you said, the attitude that you bring to the table, right? Because to be agile, you know, you need to have a certain attitude of being open, right? In some way. I think courage to speak your mind, again, is an attitude that requires a lot of development. And I think you're absolutely right about the easy to be with, right? Or easy to deal with part, because if that is not there, I know exactly what you mean when people say this matter is gone to HR, because you expect anything but ease, right, in that particular interaction. And I think these 3 points that you picked on are extremely critical, I think, to any young HR professional coming up the, when I actually think of them, they also cut across the board, right? It's not just HR, but any other domain as well could use the same thing. Tell me, what, according to you, Suchita, is, if you had to identify 3 skills, right, that you think a young professional must possess to succeed in today's day and age across different domains. Now, I'm not talking specifically about HR, right? I'm just talking across the board. What would be those, again, 2 or 3 critical skills for a young professional to succeed today?
Okay, and I'm not going to go the behavioral side. Being the HR person, I very well understand we're talking skill, not competencies.
Yes.
So, first is, of course, one has to be, as I look forward to, if I hire a young, bright professional, whatever domain, HR, finance, IT, you know, sales, wherever, marketing. I think one of the things that I expect the person to bring in is that the person who's far more younger has to be advanced in terms of usage of technology for today. It could be ChatGPT, you know, it could be any of it, really. You know, one has to have that flair to be relevant as to what is happening in this domain today. That is one thing which really helps, because it makes you very smart in terms of, you know, doing your work. That, of course, is the first one thing. I think another thing that I definitely look forward to, and I will put it in a skill format, is this sheer ability to have a presentation which is, you're able to articulate your point, you know, with confidence and with logic. Very, very, very important, no matter which domain you work in and whichever function you work in. So that is very important. And third thing, I think, in overall presentation and how you sort of present yourself. If it means some amount of grooming, so be it.
Mm.
Anybody and everybody wants to meet a person who's dressed up properly, pleasing to talk to, presents articulately well, and knows of the technology. Really, these are certain things that I look up to for people, in people.
Wonderful, Suchita. The reason why I had a big smile on my face is because, for years, the thing that I'm most passionate about is teaching, right? And I've been teaching a lot of these subjects. And very often, people across the board would ask me, what is the most important skill that you could possess that would work across the board? And I would often talk about communication skills or presentation skills, which is basically your ability to articulate yourself well, because that is in a way a meta skill, right? If you have that skill, that goes into so many different things that you become a better negotiator if you're a better communicator. You'll be better at sales, you'll be better at customer service, you'd be better better as a team member, you'd be better as a leader, you'd be so on and so forth, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's I totally agree with you when you spoke about the ability to communicate, present, articulate yourself well. I think the second point that you spoke about in terms of being abreast with the latest technology, that's a wonderful point for anybody that's listening into this thing. Because I don't know whether we had this discussion in our meeting at your office, but I love this line where I don't know who said it, where it said AI is unlikely to replace you, but a person that knows AI extremely well is more likely to replace you, right? Because you don't need to be a technical person to derive value out of AI, because there are just so many tools that if you learn about across the board, if you learn the tools of AI, you can draw so much out of it. So that's an amazing point. And again, even your third point, Suchita, on corporate grooming as a topic, right? Before you're entering the workflows, take the effort, to groom yourself in the best possible way you can, because I think whether we like it or not, people judge a book by its cover, right? Whether we like it or not, people make first impressions of you. And I think huge likability is also driven if you're well groomed, if you take the effort to present yourself well, right? So I think those are three wonderful points, Suchita, that you've laid out, right? Suchita, I'm going to pick your brain for a few more things, right?
Okay.
You've led a team for a very, very long time, right? If we have any people managers that are listening into this conversation, I want you to wear two hats, by the way, right? I want you to wear your hat as a people manager yourself, and I also want you to wear your HR hat from your observation generally of what works, what doesn't work. Again, what would you say are the 2 or 3 things that people managers need to do that would help them get the best out of their people, right? What would those things be?
Something I'm a firm believer of, and I've learned it from my managers, and I use it with my teams, and I keep insisting on for people managers in my team. First is humility. Very, very, very important, I think. You have to, you have to be humble to your team. You have to give them a chance for them to speak their mind. You have to give them that safe space to say what they want to say. I think that is when trust happens, really. Humility to also accept possibly that, oh, my point is wrong and you are right. Right? It is okay. Nothing is happening, I think that is very, very important for me, for a people manager. Humility is very important. The other thing I think is important is to somewhere have that kind of really work upon the ability to have connect with your team, wherein the team is able to trust you. I've really felt that in my case also, many of my managers have been my best mentors. If you have that kind of a connect with your manager, and if you're able to have that connect with your team members, as a people leader, as a people manager, I think the equation works out beautifully, really. And I think another thing is this whole thing about being flexible and being relevant to what people want today. Be more goal-oriented than timelines-oriented, or, stick to what is needed. Have the right intent, and then be flexible. Allow people, I mean, I'm saying basically don't micromanage so much.
Don't micromanage.
Give people that space, These are some of the things that I've learned, that I do, and I expect my leaders in my team to also sort of definitely do.
Wonderful point. Tell me a little more about, I'm going to summarize your points, because I do that on purpose so that any listener can really, make notes and know that what they're getting out of this conversation, right? But tell me a little more about the second point that you spoke about, which is connecting with the team, right? If you had to give your team members or the leaders within your team tips on how to connect better with their people, what would you say? You've already shed some light on it in terms of the whole, speak their language, be relevant in their world through different things. But anything else that comes to your mind, Suchita, on the connecting with team part?
Yeah. So let me elaborate what I mean. Really, connecting is so it's very important for one to be able to connect at a personal level also with the team. You be vulnerable for the other person also to feel that one can open up. When that bond happens, the connect happens, and people are then free to talk about their issues, their strength, what they are liking, what they're not liking, what are their challenges, what are they enjoying, and which is where, as a leader, you can possibly play on their strengths. Right. But for that to happen, the connect has to happen. For the connect to happen, one has to really put in efforts. And that could be one-on-ones, that could be informal gatherings, that could be going out and talking. But like I said, if I am not vulnerable, maybe my team will also shy away from opening up. So I really feel that is an important trait for a people leader, then to expect from the team to also open up.
Got it. Such a lovely way of elaborating that, Suchita. It's very nice. Just for the audience, so your tips would be, number one, humility, right? Just the ability to say, I'm wrong, you were right, or what I was saying is incorrect, and that humility really connects with people. And offline, we'll have a much deeper conversation on this, right? Because there's so many notes to share on how this has such a big impact. Because very often, I think leaders feel that they will emerge stronger in front of their team by not admitting that their mistakes, right? And I think I end up telling leaders that the best way to show your strength is through humility, when they see that you have, in a way, the courage to say, I'm wrong, you were right. And that really is a game changer for the equation between. No, don't you think? I think that's
totally.
Yeah. So I think I love your point of humility. I love your second point of saying connect with the team, right? I think that's extremely important. And I especially love the point of vulnerability, right? And the reason why I like that is, I think all strong relationships, whether they're in your personal life or your professional life, don't come by displaying your strong points. In a way, it comes by displaying and being transparent about your vulnerabilities, right? That's when the connect happens, because I think you come across as being real to your team members, and the minute they know that you're a real person exactly like them, probably a few more years senior, they feel the comfort to really share their problems, both professionally and sometimes personally as well, right? But they feel that comfort. So that's a wonderful point for anybody listening, Suchita. Thank you. And I think your third point broadly was, don't micromanage, right? Ensure that you talk more goals to be met than micromanaging the timelines on something, right? Because different people are used to working in a different fashion, but as long as the goal is met in a reasonable way, I think managers should take a back foot sometimes slightly. But that's such a tough one, isn't it, Suchita? Because it's so what do you call it? It's so easy for us to often step in as leaders and say that our way is the right way, right? To really draw that line sometimes between when you need to micromanage and when you don't is a tough one in itself. No, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and once you step back and don't micromanage, I think you're also empowering your team.
Yeah.
Right. I think inspire enough. Don't micromanage. Inspire for them to do bigger things. Step back and empower them to do it. At least that's always worked as far as I'm concerned, as somebody who was managed when I manage people. And I therefore very strongly feel about it.
You strongly feel about it. So do I. So do I. I'm going to ask you a question that is not asked very often, right? So even if you have to take like a good 15 seconds to put your answer together, I think please take the time, because your input has been fantastic. We talk about how to lead people well a lot, right? How do you be a good people manager? But very often what is not spoken about is how do you manage your boss well, right? I think that's a topic where not enough light is thrown on. Now, I don't mean manage your boss well in some kind of a negative political way, right? Oh, manage your boss well. No, I don't mean it in that way. I think it's very important for every person to have a great working relationship with their boss, so that you produce great results for yourself, for your boss slash leader, and for your department and company, right? So what are the tips, according to you, for somebody to work fantastically well with their manager, leader, boss, whatever you'd like to call it?
So I'll come straight away to this,
Yeah.
Swapnil. See, and I'll elaborate a little. I think it's very important when I say that, I mean, when we talk about company's culture, when we talk about people quitting, a company's culture to any employee is first his or her manager. There is a broad company culture, of course, but the treatment that a manager gives, or the equation that the employee has with the manager, is really first the culture of the company.
Yeah.
And therefore, it is very important for that equation to be good, and both have to be invested into it. So
Yeah.
we've talked about the leader. Now I'll talk about the team member. I think one of the things which is very important to develop trust amongst the manager and the team member is for the team member also to be transparent. And like I'm again saying that one should have the courage. So while the leader should give a safe environment to the people to talk, people should also have the courage. Of course, respectfully though, but tell to the manager what they feel is right or wrong.
Got it.
It is very, very important to do that. There is no harm in sharing a perspective. There is no harm in saying that it should be done differently, why it should not be done. I think any sane leader would appreciate it, and would value the team member. When we talk about investing, I think people get into, like I said, it's an investment at both the ends. I think as a team member, it is important to also spend time to understand the style of leadership that your manager comes with, and it takes a little bit of time, even in marriages, right, to understand the partner, just like that. Understand. I mean, we have differences even with our parents, right? We do realize over a period of time, this, my parents like this, they don't like, and therefore, how do I deal with it? So I think over a period of time, it is important to also learn. Different managers will always have different ways of working, right? No two managers are same. So learn whose style is how, and sort of, leverage that then once you know of it. Communicate, talk. Like I said earlier, also transparent, talk, share stuff. And it may not just be contrary. I'm saying share stuff, bring in value add. Even if, I mean, any leader looks forward to ideas, looks forward to team contributing. One shouldn't shy away from saying it. These are certain things really that I feel if one really invests in, I think it'll be a good relationship.
Wonderful. I think that's some really nice stuff, Suchita. I just again want to do a quick kind of summary of your points, right? So I totally agree with the first point that you shared, which is a company culture in a way is nothing but the cultures the leader or the manager creates within an organization, right? And I have to go, I'll derail slightly, and I'll share something that I think the listeners would find quite valuable. So I think we've very consciously built an amazing culture here at upGrad for Business, and of course over the overall ecosystem as well. But as a leader of this particular unit, very often people would ask me, hey, how the engagement rate so high, how is attrition low, right? A lot of the parameters that we typically look at, right, when it comes to employee satisfaction in some way, right? And the simple thing that I would say that I would always tell people, the one thing that we don't compromise on is we always hire decent human beings, right? We're very, very careful about hiring decent human beings, and we interview for that as well. And by decent human being, I just mean, we try to look for examples where people have shown a sense of collaboration, have shown a sense of teamwork, right? Have shown the spirit of being of value to somebody else, right? Just these kind of things, how they talk about their ex-boss, how they talk about their old company, so on and so forth, right? So all of those things are so critical for us when we hire people, because the minute you hire a bunch of decent human beings, I think decent human beings tend to be good managers. Decent human beings tend to be good team members. They tend to work better with customers, right? So on and so forth. I could go on and on. So, that part is so critical, that in a way you spoke about, right? That the manager needs to drive a company culture in some way. It's nothing but that. I totally agree with you. I think I love the other points that you shared as well, right? Because I'm just going to pick one of the points that you shared, which I thought was lovely in terms of understanding the style of your manager, right? I think that's a fantastic point, because a lot of team members don't really take the effort to do that. And I'm sure you would agree. I have a 5.5-year-old, and he's figured out what works well with his grandmother, what works well with his mother, what works well with his father.
Yeah.
He has figured out everybody's styles and who to ask what for and what time to ask it at 5.5, right?
Yeah.
Because for him, we are his authority figures of some sort. He's figured
Yeah.
it out through his observation, and I totally agree with you. I think all team members should do that, because that will facilitate a great a great relationship with their managers, and drive a great company culture. Fantastic points. Thank you. Suchita, tell me, what are the big challenges that you're facing today as an HR head? I want you to remove other hats and wear your HR head hat now. What would be your top 3 challenges? What keeps you up at night, if anything, as an HR head?
Tough question, but yeah, okay.
Take your time. Take it. We want, you don't need to answer immediately, because I know these are slightly tricky questions. So take your time when you're answering them.
Okay. So, Swapnil, as an organization, we work a lot around people and their experience. We take a lot of pride with great engagement scores that we have, right? Getting certified, on some of the platforms which call us, best place to work and stuff like that. Having said that, I still feel that it's a constant endeavor to, culture is not static, right? You have to keep working on it, on and on and on. So some of the stuff that we talk about is something that I keep, I and the entire leadership team at Midland, we keep working upon, is creating that experience for people wherein they are able to bring up the contrary view, right? They are able to, we involve them in a lot of decision making, right? So we keep thinking at bettering that experience more and more, right? And what keeps me awake at night is, how do I make people also tell me more and more candidly and genuinely what they want, possibly versus going anonymously in sharing that stuff. Once you're able to tell the person directly what you need, I think that is when the real relationship happens. So that is something that I'm working on currently as we talk. So that's where it is. Of course, another thing is the times are changing. We are working a lot upon creating an inclusive work culture from a diversity standpoint. And we are working there, and it's a journey. But I think, one of the stuff that I think I'm working on is really having people open up and say it the way it is. That's something I will say that in our culture we are working on.
Got it. So that's very interesting to know. So for you, I think what comes top and center as a challenge or a constant area of improvement, right, is culture, right? I've seen that as a common thread in a lot of your answers, that you really passionately think and believe that the culture of a place is extremely important. So that's what keeps you up. In a way, you want to keep bettering that. You want people to keep coming and giving you that feedback that will give you insights in terms of what needs to be improved for people. I love that answer. Tell me, Suchita, and this is you've been a very successful women leader, right? And when I say women leader, I just don't mean women leader and not just a leader. But do you have any specific tips, strategies, wisdom that you'd like to share for women in specific in the workforce as an extremely successful woman leader?
First of all, thank you.
Yeah.
Second, I know it for a fact, Swapnil, women end up slogging more, multitasking more, right? No, I mean, of course, we are all progressive and our thought process are progressive. And as a mother, as a wife, somewhere I end up juggling a lot of stuff. No matter how much my husband contributes, but somewhere still the dependency is on me, and if it is not, then also I have a problem. So it's both. But yes, so one of the things is that I keep telling myself that I know it's tough for me, then possibly for a male doing similar job, right? But I also feel, I think women only have that power also to do it. Generally, I can tell you multitasking is something, I don't know, many people are fan of it, many are not, but I don't think women can survive without multitasking. That comes in very handy, and technology, knowledge of technology while you're doing all of it comes in very, very handy. This is a daily thing. You're always juggling with something, booking a cab for my daughter for the coaching, and here I have a presentation going on, and my other one is calling me. So I am juggling all the time. That happens. It happens all the time. So one thing is multitasking that I feel that one ends up doing. Another thing is, I think from time to time, patting your back, right? While others do, they don't do. Patting yourself, your back, and going easy on yourself and pampering yourself comes in very helpful. One should do that often. And there have been phases of life. It's not the same challenge at every phase of life. After marriage, there are different challenges. When I was having my 2 daughters, I had different challenges. Now they're grown up, the challenges are different, right? But like I said, I do feel, yes, it is difficult. But then one has to balance it. You win some, you lose some. Certain things I leave up at home front also, that it's fine. Let my kids take the decision. I'll not get into it. And there are certain times, I'll take charge and I'll say, let this meeting be rescheduled. I have to manage this at home. So that balance is also very important.
Got it. I have to tell you, especially given how hectic a lot of Indian cities are, right? Because more often than not, travel across our cities is so hectic. Just getting to office is often like fighting a war in itself. And this is what I've been saying for years. I said, anybody that's a working mother, right, in any role is a superwoman, right? Because I know, having seen my mother, who was a working mother, where she do a job and handle home, how many different things she had to multitask with, and probably I didn't realize it when I was younger, but my appreciation for any working women professional who also has children and has to manage that, I think that's superhuman level effort that is required there, right? So I get that. So if the tips that you would have for women in the workforce is, I think the number one thing that I heard is understand that multitasking is going to be a part of how you operate, right?
Leverage technology for it.
Yes, and therefore ensure that you're leveraging technology for it. That is very, very important. I think the second thing that you spoke about is the importance to pat your back once in a while, right? Because you're handling just so many different things, and I think that is very important. And I think that was an amazing point in itself, right? In terms of saying pat yourself, but that doesn't happen. And I think the third one would be really about know what to do and sometimes know what to not do.
Don't strive for perfection all the time in every domain. It's okay to let go some of the things.
Absolutely. It's okay to let go of certain things. And I also have this feeling, and just correct me if I'm wrong, whether you've seen that I've seen a lot of my women colleagues strive for excellence, right? And a lot of times it's so easy, it's so difficult for them to let go of that thing, and often, like you said, they're very hard on themselves in some way and don't also pat their backs for the phenomenal work that happens, right? I have seen that. I think those are great tips for anybody entering and wanting to succeed at the workplace, right? Suchita, with that, any final thoughts on anything you'd like to share? If you feel there's a question that I haven't asked that is an important one that you'd like to share some light on, this is the time to do that.
We've talked a lot about careers and, managing leaders and managing self under a leader and culture and women. I think at the end of it all, Swapnil, it's the resilience really that is needed. Some days you have great days, some days you don't have such great days, right? I do feel and agree that women are emotionally wired more than men and possibly end up overthinking. But men, women, whatever, I just feel that resilience at the end of the day is important. Be positive, do as much as you can, take care of your mental health, very important. A happy person will be a happy employee, a happy leader, a happy mother, a happy father, a happy friend, so keep a balance. That's all that I want to say.
Right. Lovely. I think that's such a great parting note, Suchita. Suchita, thank you very much for joining us for this conversation. I mean it when I say it. I didn't realize how the time went by because you shared such wonderful points and in an extremely sharp way that people can actually pick up and use in their both work and personal life in some way, right? So thank you very much for joining us. I had a wonderful time during this thing, and I'm hoping that whoever's listening to this conversation and watching it picks up stuff and can really use it in their day-to-day life.
Thank you so much for having me. I love the conversation too.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.